Tonight's bitter cold is only a hint of the winter weather yet to hit St. Louis this season.
But what can we really expect to see before spring arrives? The Forewarned Storm Team takes an in-depth look at the weather patterns that could be on the way this winter.
St. Louis winters can be extreme, from heavy snow or ice to mild and wet with flooding rivers. We can get a wild variety of winter weather. For example, take a look at the snowfall extremes. The most snow we've had on record in winter, almost 44 inches, and yet the least amount, a measly ½ an inch. We're going to have somewhere in between that range for sure. But before we look ahead at how much snow to expect this winter, let's put into perspective our most recent winter with meteorologist Kent Ehrhardt.
Last year, a strong El Nino formed, which typically means drier than normal weather for us. Now, we did see only 10.6 inches of snowfall last winter, most of which came in February, and that's below our historical average of 14 inches for the winter months of December, January, and February. But when it comes to rainfall, well, we rewrote the record book. 3 days of heavy rain right after Christmas led to the wettest December on record. Historic flooding on the Burbus and Merrimack rivers.
So despite being based on science and climate trends, these long-term forecasts, like last winter, are still a big challenge. But they help with possible trends, and this year, there is no El Nino. It's been replaced by La Nina, which is a huge pool of cooler than normal water in the Pacific. Now, this can impact our jet stream and thus our weather. And meteorologist Megan Danahay shows us the impact from a typical La Nina on our winter.
During a typical La Nina, St. Louis is caught in a transition zone. The polar jet dips down, allowing cold air to pool just to our north. But that same jet stream cuts off the cold air from reaching the south, which allows warmer than normal air to build just to our south. And the most frequent storm path follows that jet stream and most frequently focuses on the Ohio Valley, but can clip St. Louis, making for a wetter than normal winter. At least that would be the setup in a typical La Nina.
But this year's La Nina is weak and may not even last all winter. Plus, there are all sorts of other factors to consider. I think a big factor this year is the above-average snowfall right now in Europe, Russia, and Siberia. Now, this favors colder than normal air that I expect to spill into the U.S. during cold air outbreaks. And while the coldest air will be just to our north, I expect St. Louis to get clipped by those big chills and then quickly rebound to normal winter temperatures. While we're experiencing an Arctic blast this week, we will recover and warm up. But I expect to see more hits of Arctic air this December and January. This would be a big change from last winter, which was the 8th warmest on record. So my forecast is slightly colder than normal for this winter. Now, how about snowfall and rainfall? A weak La Nina combined with cold and dry air intrusions would balance out for a normal rainfall. However, that would be half of what we saw this past winter. And as far as snow, this jet stream trend would favor quick hitting shots of mostly light snow and 1 or 2 heavier snowfalls. While it's impossible to tell exactly when we'll get our biggest snow and how much, this trend would favor near normal snowfall this winter, highlighted with several small but fluffy snows and perhaps 1 or 2 bigger storms. So my forecast is for near normal snowfall in the 12 to 15 inch range. Keep in mind that our meteorological winter is December, January, and February. But we know March in St. Louis is always a wild card. It can produce tornado outbreaks or 10-inch snowfalls. As always, we'll be watching out for you, taking it week by week to keep you ahead of the cold, ice, snow, or even flooding that we know can occur in a wild St. Louis winter. Sort of starting off a little bit wild, too, isn't it, with this Arctic air already moving in? And you weren't a big fan of hearing that it could be colder than normal this winter as well.
But I was reassured when you said we're going to take this week by week.
Week by week, right.
And we'll listen very closely and we'll be prepared for it.
There will be ups, there will be downs. Guess what? We're in a down right now. It's